Good morning. This is the recommending committee for December 4th, 2023, and this is officially called to order. And our second item is our announcement regarding the compliance with the open meeting law. Ms. Luann.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All members are present, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Our item number 3 is public comment. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. They're rushing. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4 for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference of the November 13th, 2023 recommending committee meeting. Entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
There's a motion. Please vote.
Yeah. I did it. Yes. Approve.
And post. And that passes. Moving on to item number 5, bill number 2023-28 for possible action amends LVMC Title VI to add a new chapter pertaining to the licensing and regulation of sidewalk vendors as authorized and directed by state law. This is sponsored by our Councilwoman Olivia Diaz. And I will turn this over to Mr. Floyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seth Floyd for the record. So, Councilman, I know that there's been a request for a First Amendment, but I think what we might want to do to stay organized is Darcy is prepared to go through the original version of the bill and kind of go through the highlights of what that version did, and then if there's an appetite to do it, we can then talk through the amendment and see where we go from there. So if that's all right with you, Mr. Chair, I'll have Darcy go through the bill as it is currently written, and then we can talk through those amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd. And for the record, do you mind just putting it on the record why we're in this position and what why the state is putting us in this position to pass this ordinance?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chair. And I believe as part of Darcy's presentation, she's going to go through some of that history of the bill, SB 92, that led us here, and then also the outreach that we've done on that bill.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. All right. Good morning, Darcy Edelby Hurd, Business Licensing Manager. So, yes, we created this bill for the sidewalk vending based off of the Senate Bill 92. The state passed legislation requiring that local governments create a licensing path or prohibit the sidewalk vending. And they gave us guidelines as to where it was not allowed. So this bill adopted all of those prohibitions, and then we added in the components needed to create the licensing path for it. So what I'm going to go through is really quickly is what we've done and what the bill does, and then we can answer questions. So we did a business impact solicitation for 30 days, starting from October 4th through November 2nd, collecting the comments from the businesses. Then on November 15th, we introduced the bill at a city council meeting. Obviously today we're here for recommending, with a possible second reading of the bill slated for December 6th and a possible adoption slated for December 20th. The reason for that was because the Senate Bill 92 required us to have a licensing path enacted by January 1st of 2024. So this timeline would have gotten us through that timeline. We have done several outreach sessions. We did 2 online WebEx sessions. We did 2 in person, 1 fully in Spanish at the East Las Vegas Community Center. We did a live stream one here in the City Council chambers with the ability to be translated in Spanish if needed. We participated in the sidewalk vending task force meeting. The task force was created by that Senate Bill 92 requirement that was held at the State Building on October 24th. And one of our staff members also attended some of the Make the Road events at their request. So what's in the bill? It requires a sidewalk vendor to complete an application to hold a business license, telling us what items they're going to be selling, their name, their address, if they're an LLC or corporation or sole proprietor. It's a $150 annual license fee. The license would be non-transferable, It does require that a health card is obtained from each operator or vendor as required by the health department, and that the conveyance that they're using is permitted by the health department. So if they have a food cart or trailer of some sort, then that is inspected by the health department. The prohibitions included a 150-foot separation from the primary entrance of any food establishment during their operating hours unless they had other permissions, 500-foot separation from an operating farmer's market or a special event, 1,000-foot separation of a non-restricted gaming license, 1,000-foot separation from the Fremont Street Experience pedestrian mall, for a 1,000-foot separation from the downtown entertainment overlay district, a 1,000-foot separation from the outside perimeter of a school property during the hours school is in session, and, or 1 hour before school starts and 1 hour after school ends, and a 1,000-foot separation from city-owned swimming pool, community center, recreational center, unless otherwise permitted, and then 1,500 feet from a resort hotel. We also included in the bill no consuming of alcoholic beverages while vending, no vending at a location immediately adjacent to a city park unless otherwise permitted. We said vending in a residential neighborhood is allowable in a non-stationary fashion only, meaning they have to keep moving. And we put in hours, no vending between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. That is in line with our quiet hours and our noise ordinance. Or in any time or place where the conveyance may be disturbing the peace. We also included no setting up of signs, devices, or tables or chairs on the public sidewalk or pedestrian path, and that they must operate in accordance with all applicable traffic laws, right-of-way, parking laws, and ordinances, and that they shall not have any exclusive right to any location upon the public sidewalk or pedestrian path, that they shall not impede the pedestrian traffic or normal use of the public sidewalk path or hinder access or ADA accessibility. The Senate Bill 92 required that the enforcement would be criminal. It allows for criminal or civil infractions. It would only be civil if the licensee is vending in prohibited residential areas, or civil if it's unlicensed sidewalk vending, if unlicensed sidewalk vending is found. Otherwise, it would be applicable to be a criminal citation. We created a website, a web page on our website dedicated specifically to sidewalk vending for frequently asked questions and maps and information on all the outreach that we did, including PowerPoints. And we did hear back from the public indicating some of the concerns that they had. And some of those concerns were talking about the distance separations from the parks and the schools, and then also some distance separations from other from other retail establishments, and then changing some of the times, the quiet times to mimic the same as the other jurisdictions. We also created informational sheets, which are also on our website, both in English and in Spanish, that kind of give a breakdown of the highlights of the bill. So with that, that is pretty much everything that was in the bill, all of our efforts that we've done thus far up until this point.
Thank you very much. That was very informative. And I'm just going to, a few questions that I've had, and then I'll open it up to other members up here, and then we'll go to public comment as well. The question that I had is, how closely are we comparing to the other jurisdictions' bills, because this is required through the state of Nevada, and I just want to make sure we understand what's happening in the other jurisdictions.
Okay, so so far we've met with Clark County, Henderson, and North Las Vegas, and they have not yet finished drafting their language, but when we did meet, we did try to line up some of what we have in our bill with what they are going to propose in their bill. So until they have official language, I can't say exactly what's going to end up, but there are some amendments that I did propose to our city attorney for a first amendment that would line us up based on our conversations, and that would include, number one, making this a multi-jurisdictional license, meaning that anybody can come and apply in one jurisdiction, pay all the fees for the different jurisdictions and getting the one license so that they can not have to go to the different jurisdictions, and we can give them a separate license from each one. Changing the stationary requirements so that if you are, the non-stationary requirements so that if you are in one location, you can't be there for more than 30 minutes vending, and that you would have to move a particular distance away before you're considered being stationary, and then being a separate, a set distance between other vendors. So we were trying to get in line with that. And I think those are the big ones. For the most part, when we spoke with Clark County, the draft that we saw, they pretty much were copying a lot of the same language that we had in our bill, except for those few things that I just pointed out. I did speak with them this morning. They are getting ready to start their business impact solicitation soon, and they're thinking that they'll probably have their ordinance passed probably in February.
Does that put us out of compliance with the statute if we're supposed to have it done by January 1st?
I would say it would be, yes.
Okay. Can I, just one quick question. Is the multi-jurisdictional license possible?
It is very possible, yes.
Okay.
We have in our code already several categories that would be like a mobile type business that we can already do multi-jurisdictional, and we have the software developed because we do it with the contractors. So we've spoken to our IT departments, and they're ready to talk with the other ones to get this going. We just need a MOU between the jurisdictions.
And the amendments you requested, they were requested by Councilwoman Diaz, is that true?
The proposed First Amendments, we did brief with her on them, but at this time, she is requesting us to put this into a two-phased approach, where we're doing just the distance separations and then speak later on the licensing requirements.
Okay. Are there other questions up here?
Yeah. So we already do that, and I think the state does it too, where you go in and you buy all the licenses at one time, but it's still a separate license, correct? Yeah.
That is correct.
Okay, and then, so we're not, when she says she wants a two-phase approach, does she want us to pass this and then come in and do the amendments later?
Councilwoman Diaz is requesting that we do an amendment to this bill, taking everything out that has to do with the licensing component, where we aren't actually creating a licensing category and that path right now, and just leaving in all of the distance separations for where they can't be, based off of what SB 92 allows. So like the 1,500-foot separation from the resort hotels, the non-restricted gaming, those components.
Okay, I'm not sure I quite understand that.
So Seth, I think it's confusing as well. So let me just say that you're in good company and thinking it's a little bit confusing. The bill itself is, well, I'm not going to say that on the record. So I think the way that I grasp this is that the bill basically has two parts. One part is the state actually went in and prescribed certain distance separations for these particular uses, and those went into effect in October. And I think the county may have actually adopted an ordinance to do that back in October. It went into effect by virtue of state law. The other part of the bill, which is permissive, is that it allows us to create, as Darcy said, a licensing pathway for sidewalk vendors, because we currently don't have in our code a specific definition for sidewalk vendor. We have some other definitions that are related. So our bill that we proposed in the initial draft would have covered both of those. It would have created the distance separations or memorialized those, and then also created the licensing pathway. The request, as I understand it from Councilwoman Diaz, is to remove the licensing pathway part for now, just do the distance separation adoption, and come back and do the licensing pathway part later. So whether that comes in as a new bill or an amendment, I think at that point it would be a new bill that we would adopt also pursuant to SB 92. And if that, and I know that still may be confusing, maybe Val can help me out a little bit with what that amendment would do.
Is there a reason for that? That we're not going to just do the entire thing that we have been working on? I mean, can you tell me if there was a reasoning behind it? Because it doesn't make sense to me if we already created the sidewalk vending. I'm perplexed on the whole thing.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, as I said, I don't know the specific rationale behind it, so I apologize, I can't speak to that.
I think I can't support it unless I knew what the reasoning is.
Mr. Seed, do you have any feedback on the conversation?
I think the sponsor got some feedback from the sponsor of SB 92 and perhaps others in the community, thinking maybe we should take more time on the licensing and certain of the other requirements that are in our draft. And so that may be why she wanted to do a cutback on this first adoption and then follow up later with the licensing and other things.
Can we do that within the existing bill with the First Amendment?
I think so. Well, no, it's gonna. I said I think we can. We haven't published it yet, but that would string it out until February or whenever we get the other stuff done. Another option is to adopt this bill and come back with a new one, and I don't think the new one would require a separate business impact solicitation because it would be things that we already sent out.
Is there any implications or ramifications if we do push it out, if we're aligned more with the timing of the county? I think that puts us against...
There's some disagreement. It's a very confusing bill. It had several different effective dates, and there's some disagreement about whether this licensing thing has to be done by January 1st or not. If others are like the county are believing that they can meet the intent of the bill by doing theirs in February, then I don't know why we would be any different. Yeah.
Here, do you have any?
You know, I don't even understand why this is happening, why this bill's there. I know I've been in a couple of meetings, but not enough. So the first is, I know what we did with truck vendors being within the certain feed of restaurants. What is the purpose of this bill? And not having heard from the sponsor of the bill directly, I don't even understand why we're doing this. I know we're all concerned with safety and health, and I wonder about any vendor that isn't publicly showing their recent most appropriate health clearance as well as the license, that it's there and it should be visible to anybody who comes to whatever it is. There's so many questions that I have, and knowing the distance from a hotel, that's purposeful. It's about competition. The same thing whether a street vendor is a small cart or is it motorized. I mean, there's so many questions that I have to this. And then looking at both sides, I'd love to hear from some vendors and what they're thinking as opposed to what the state has decided needs to happen. To me, having raised 4 children and having grandchildren, when they come out of school, they're hungry. And so you don't want them on the property, but I think a parent would like to be able to buy a child something. And the same thing when you're at the parks. I think this is tipped because I don't have enough information. It's backwards. Yes, stay away from hotels. Yes, distance separation from restaurants. Yes, be licensed. Yes, have it visible. Make sure the mayonnaise hasn't turned sour, and there's a lawsuit pending, which Respondeat Superior, the city, will be sued because we have the license. I mean, there's so many pieces to this, and for us to rush because the state says rush along, I'm sorry, I can't. And only being come lately here, sitting with the chair and councilwoman, I'm very concerned by it. And I don't have either side, and I don't understand, and I don't think we as a city fully have both sides. What is this? What is the purpose of a street vendor? Is it like New York City, where in the holidays they're selling roasted chestnuts and hot chocolate, as opposed to, and we did have lotteries, what we came up with for truck vendors, so that one person couldn't have only the best spot. And so that's another thing. And I think if the city and its leadership and understanding of what it does, we don't have enough information. And certainly the state would not want us to go ahead past something as a rubber stamp that, one, isn't fair, isn't good use of taxpayer dollars, and isn't really responding to the issues that it brings. So being the visitor today, whatever you two recommend, unless you're on different sides of it, you've heard and I will bring that up at council meeting when it gets there.
And this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open it up for a public hearing now. For anybody that would like to comment on this bill, we'll set the time at 3 minutes. Much like the mayor, I would love to hear feedback from anybody who participates in this industry. So we'll set the time at 3 minutes, and come forward, state your name for the record, and let us know what you're thinking. Go ahead. Right here. Thank you. Yeah, come on up. There you go. State your name for the record, please.
And I'll be translating right after what he says.
Thank you very much.
Ok, muy buenos días a todas las personas. Mi nombre es Eduardo Moreno, tengo 68 años y tengo 23 años viviendo aquí en Las Vegas. Yo, por ejemplo, soy vendedor ambulante desde hace aproximadamente 11 años. Y la situación es de que las nuevas leyes o reglas que quieren poner son unas cosas que yo creo son muy difíciles de conseguir, porque apuradamente, según las noticias, aquí para que una persona sobreviva y debe de tener un promedio más o menos de 40, 50 mil dólares anuales. Y yo como vendedor ambulante no llego ni a 20 mil dólares anuales en ventas y todo. De ahí hay que descontar renta, alimentación. Tengo una esposa y 2 hijos. Y yo siento que es muy difícil poder pagar todas las reglas que nos ponen. Las veo muy difícil porque apuradamente sacamos lo necesario como para sobrevivir. No vivir bien, sino sobrevivir. Porque a veces a mis hijos se les antojan unas cosas y no puedo yo comprárselas porque la situación económica aquí está bien difícil. Aparte de eso, a mi edad ya no trabajo todos los días. Yo trabajo 4 o 3, a veces 5 días a la semana, porque es muy cansado y aparte la inseguridad está tremenda. A mí en 10 años me han asaltado 6 veces. La última vez fue el 9 de septiembre y con una ametralladora. No, ni pistola, ni arma blanca, no, con una ametralladora.
Un momento. I'm going to ask if you can translate, because that's a lot to remember. So if you don't mind jumping in and translating, and I don't want to interrupt, but I also don't want to miss what you're saying as well.
No, es simple que lo voy a transcribir que dijiste ahorita. So hello, his name is Eduardo. He's 73 years old. He's been living in the city of Las Vegas for 23 years. My name is Robert Garcia, lead organizer with Make the Road Nevada, for the record. And he's mentioning how these regulations, if he believes that shouldn't be strict because not everybody, you're thinking in big numbers like, oh, they make 50 a year. He, as a street vendor, doesn't even make barely 20,000 a year. And oftentimes with him being able to, his age, he doesn't always sell. sometimes he only sells 3 times a week, sometimes 5 times a week. It just depends on what he's capable of, and he wishes that these regulations don't impede his businesses. In the last 23 years of selling, he only has been attacked 6 times, and he just wants to mention that what he does to provide for his family, being able to buy stuff for his nieces, his daughters, and that he wants to be able to continue to be able to provide for his family, but also the community. ¿Algo más que decir?
Sí, que, mire, por ejemplo, para cumplir todos los requisitos que nos quieren poner como vendedores ambulantes, yo veo que es muy difícil, porque apuradamente no tenemos, bueno, yo no me siento con el dinero suficiente como para pagar 4 o 5 permisos que están pidiendo, que de salubridad, que de la ciudad, que muchos requisitos, que debe uno de tener su carro adecuado, pero ya si ya han pasado tantos años y la gente no se ha afectado, no sé qué. ¿Sí?
Sí. See, the last thing he wanted to mention is that with these regulations, with these permits, like, please don't make it hard for street vendors to be able to sell, because having to pay for so many permits, so many licensings could really affect them and impede them in the future, that causes them to not be able to afford being a street vendor in the first place, which is something that he wants to mention, that even though SB 92 was a law passed this year, years before, being a street vendor, they haven't been having those issues that people have been mentioning, like foodborne illness, sickness, and stuff, because they take great precaution to make sure the food that they sell is good, and that they're able to continue selling for years to come.
And I missed your name. I apologize.
Yes, sorry. My name is Robert Garcia.
It's very kind of you to help us translate. Thank you. Would you mind asking a couple of questions?
Yeah. Le quieren preguntar unas preguntas a usted. So me van a decir unas preguntas y te voy a decirlo.
Okay.
How big is his cart and where does he vend?
¿Qué es el tamaño de su carrito que manejas para vender y dónde vendes?
Mi carro tiene 4 pies por 6.
So it's a cart 4x6. It's not really big at all.
Y vendo ahí frente a la Fuerza Aérea, por la Cheyenne, Nellis. Es un cuadro nomás, Cheyenne, Nellis. Por ahí.
Sells between Cheyenne and Nellis. Those are the streets that he typically sells, but he doesn't have a massive big cart. It's a 4x7 cart.
Does he move around?
¿Usted mueve o se queda en un lugar?
Me muevo porque pegué mi carrito a mi carro o sea, lo pegué para no andar, ya no puedo ni empujarlo, entonces lo pegué con la trailita, la pegué a mi carro.
So he does move around. Because of his age, what he does is attach it to his car, and he'll just move his car because it's very heavy for him to push because of his age. But yeah, he doesn't stay in one place. He stays moving around that area.
Does he have a permit from the health district?
¿Tienes un permiso del distrito de salud?
No tengo nada.
Okay. Thank
As
you.
I know, no.
And very kind of you to translate again. Mr. Floyd, in the future, if we are to hear this again, can we have someone from the staff as a translator too? And thank you very much for your...
So, Mr. Chairman, we actually do have someone on staff here available to translate.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
You're just volunteering. You're doing great. Thank you.
And then Ellie will also like to say something if she can.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Elizabeth Velázquez y soy una organizadora con Make a Road. Una de las cosas que están prácticamente atemorizando a los vendedores, en una parte están contentos porque SB 92 va a ser algo que a ellos les va a ayudar, como poder entrar a una expo vendiendo sus productos. Pero algo que han comentado ellos es que las regulaciones que ustedes o que la ciudad quiere poner son muy drásticas para los vendedores. Si hubiera algo más, como más flexible, algo que pudieran hacer.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Velasquez. I am an organizer with Make the Road.
Reyes, can you say your name for the record, just so we have that? Yeah, your name as a translator.
Ramiro Reyes,
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Appreciate it.
Diversity Outreach Officer, City of Las Vegas. Street vendors are very excited for this bill and the opportunities that it will bring for us to participate in community and events and special events. However, we are very concerned with the amount of regulations and requirements that will be required of street vendors.
Esa es la preocupación de ellos. Están contentos con SB 92. Lo que ellos sienten es la preocupación de ya no poder vender en parques, tener que pagar una comisaría, y realmente ellos no cuentan con ese dinero para pagar.
Street vendors are very excited about the opportunities that this bill will provide, but they are very concerned with the fees associated with the bills in order to allow us to vend in parks and other public areas.
Ellos dicen que si pudieran ponerse más flexibles en la forma de ayudarlos para poder tener unas regulaciones mejores para ellos, eso a ellos los pone como en una etapa donde sienten que van a estar mejor, que ahorita que están creando estas regulaciones están muy drásticas, y escucharon el precio que está pidiendo el Departamento de Salud, son casi $800, y ellos sienten que es demasiado dinero que no van a poder pagar.
Street vendors believe that the fees are a little too drastic. $800 is a large amount that's inaccessible for some of the street vendors. So street vendors would really appreciate the flexibility and the flexibility to allow to work with us and be a little more accommodating to our requests.
Si ustedes pudieran ayudar, en realidad los vendedores no quieren hacer como unas personas que se queden desempleadas. Ellos realmente quieren seguir con sus pequeños negocios, así que pues les agradezco mucho su atención. Gracias.
If you could help us, street vendors are entrepreneurs that want to stay in business and just need a little more flexibility. So if you could work with us, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
And then I would also like to
Please.
Public comment. So
Can you say your name for the record one more
yeah.
time?
Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Garcia. I'm a lead organizer with Make the Road Nevada. I just want to not only double down on what my peers have said, but also to acknowledge that with street vendors, they work tirelessly every single day to not only provide for their family, but there's also a huge cultural impact within our community. Oftentimes throughout the summer, throughout winter, throughout spring, a big essential part of our community is street vendors, and be able to, after school, be able to get something to eat, buy a snack, be able to also having like tamales during the winter, champurrado, and then shaved ice in the raspados in the summer. With street vendors, their work is tirelessly every day to not only provide for themselves, but also their family. They are small businesses that contribute to positively within our economy here in the state of Nevada. And by allowing street vendors to not only sell, but also make these regulations just that makes it easier for them to not only get the necessary permits and licenses, but they're also affordable, that it doesn't hinder them from being street vendors, because at the end of the day, these are small businesses, and these people are doing whatever they can to survive, to be able to get through, not only for themselves, but also their families. And I also wanted to share a picture as a reference of sometimes their cards look like this. This is Eduardo's cart, just for you to have like a reference. It's a little cart.
There's a screen up there to
There's
put on.
screen? Okay. Perfect. As you can see right here, this is the cart that he has, and just want to show that it's not these massive food trucks that you believe that street vendors have. Street vendors have small carts that only provide the essentials that they need to not only sell, but also be able to provide an income for themselves. And that is it. I revoke the rest of my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your help, and I think we have one more question up here.
Well, and I'd like to ask you both as translators to ask them, with your permission here. My biggest concern is health. and safety. So if you would let them know that at this point, I mean, this is a very big issue, but the first point is good health.
La alcaldesa dice que su preocupación es la salud y la seguridad, ¿verdad? Es un problema y un tema que es muy importante para ella, la seguridad y la salud.
So, in light of that, how would you see getting a health permit? It worries me that not them and not good people, but there are others who could serve old food, diseased food, rancid food, and there has to be a health control as number one for me. What do they think about the health department permit first?
Tomando eso en cuenta, ¿cuáles son sus pensamientos de miembros de la comunidad sacando el permiso de salud, verdad? La preocupación de nuevo es de seguridad y la salud. La alcaldesa entiende y no piensa de que es ustedes, pero ¿cómo podemos prevenir miembros que puedan vender comida que ya se les venció, comida que tal vez no está, no es algo seguro para servir, ¿verdad? Entonces la pregunta a ustedes es, ¿cómo ustedes piensan obtener esos permisos, requisitos y apoyar esa prioridad de salud y seguridad para todos?
And our attorney has said the trucks have to have health department permits, the trucks. So this process has to somehow be figured out for street vendors to have health department approved sales.
Nuestros abogados han dicho de que los camiones de comida, ¿verdad?, necesitan esos permisos del Departamento de Salud, ¿verdad? Entonces, ¿cómo podemos trabajar para asegurar de que los vendedores ambulantes también tengan los seguros de salud?
¿Le puedo contestar?
Anything else, Mayor?
No, I just want, that's a very big issue, and there's so much more here from my perspective. And I defer to my colleagues here, but the truck vendors already have to comply with certain license, different types of license, fees and things. It doesn't mean it will end up for the street vendor with the small cart. But I just want to make sure, to me, the first and most important thing is the health and quality of what you're serving out of anybody, not your good food, but somebody else who is serving rancid or bad food. So that's all. It was just a statement, and would they be willing to get a health, when it's determined, is it by size? I mean, the health department needs to be part of this conversation.
Mr. Steve?
Yeah, let me clarify. The aspect of health related to sales and service of food is delegated by state law to the health district. It's my understanding that the health district doesn't necessarily have in place now regulations particular to street vendors, but Darcy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at the workshops they represented that they will have something in place that they will use in the interim until their formal regulations are in place. And our ordinance says once those formal regulations are in place, they'll be required to follow them, but whether we say that or not, it's still true. Darcy, can you remember what they said at that workshop?
Yeah, Darcy Alaba, I heard for the record. Yes, they indicated that while they have time by SB 92, I think until December of 2025 to work out their regulations, they're maintaining what's on their books right now. And so these street vendors do have to follow the same requirements that the trucks have to follow. And I believe that is why the fees are as hefty as they're indicating. At the workshops, they indicated that there is a path for them right now, and I want to say that they quoted somewhere between $900 for the year for the inspections and for the permit for the first year, and then I think it was like 300 and something, depending on the different carts, for the renewal fees or something to that effect. But there is a path for them right now, and they do have to go through the inspections for street vending today.
And Darcy, are those fees done by the health department, not by us?
That is the health, right. Our fee is $150 annual license. Our proposed fee is $150 annual license fee, and then there's a $50 processing.
Very reasonable, and there's no gross sales on there. It's just a flat $150.
That is correct.
Yeah, so I think that might not be what they understand, is that that's health department fees. And I agree with the mayor that, you know, we have to have public safety as number one, and maybe there's something that the state can do or the health department with their fees, but we have no control over those fees.
Ms. Appleton, can I ask a question? Because I sit on the health district board, so I just want to make sure that my understanding is clear. From the health district's perspective, there's been a task force established at the state level, and their job is to develop the standards by which the Southern Nevada Health District would have to adhere to. And so they're waiting for that task force to come up with the standards, which will be by 2025 at some point. So if you're a vendor, what's coming out of this process is you get the permit by the health district. You also get licensed by a jurisdiction in order to vend. The restrictions outlined within the proposed ordinance at the city or another jurisdiction basically allow for the licensing and distance separations. Those are the two main things. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And so the bill sponsor, Councilwoman Diaz, has asked to somewhat separate them and keep the distance separations, but maybe...
No.
I get distracted very easily. I get it. I'm just kidding. And so the bill sponsors asked for distance separation to stay the same, but licensing to be different. What I heard from the attorney, Mr. Steed, is you think it can, but I think for my comfort level, I'd rather know it, and I'd rather feel a lot more comfortable if the staff were more comfortable. Maybe we can obey this for 2 weeks to 30 days. What would be an appropriate amount of time? Because the question that I have is around that multi-jurisdictional license, if it is possible. Having some consistency, I think, is very helpful, especially if you're a vendor in that very dynamic, changing environment right now. Having consistency throughout the valley, if you have one license, would matter to me. Not that everything has to be the same, because the city and county and Henderson are very different, but understanding what it is going into it, I think, would matter to me.
Mayor Pro Tem, could I make a comment?
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you, but I think for us to make any ruling on anything until the health department has made it definitive what the charge is going to be, what the expectation is, and how they're going to do their job. We are a municipality. They have created this bill and this mandate, and we're not in a position. I don't want to see anybody eating food and getting sick and finding out now they've destroyed their businesses, they're suing us because they've gotten sick. This should have been in place already. The health department should have handled this and said, for the vendor, and we don't want to put you out of business, and we realize the cost of $800 is usurious, that we need to. I totally agree with you, and I don't know. I think that timeline to January is unrealistic, that we should throw it back and say, health department, you tell us what you're going to do to approve the vendors and what they're selling, then bring it back to us. I don't think we should put our feet in this puddle yet.
So I agree with you. The health district has regulations that they do use with street vending. The difference is the state has a task force, and the task force will take a year to come up with whatever those new regulations will look like. So it puts us in a very awkward position, and a requirement to pass a bill that doesn't have established regulations at the state or the health district yet.
And legal exposure.
So I think if it's we want to be respectful. I totally understand where you all are coming from, and you've done a great job advocating. And I think our community is much more aware of that industry more than we ever have before. But I also don't want to pass a law that doesn't make any sense. And I want to make sure that we're respectful of everyone, including the senator who came up with the legislation. So for my comfort level, I'm going to say 30-day abeyance. And I know that puts us outside of the compliance with the NRS, but I think it's a risk I'm willing to take, Mr. Steed, unless you tell me otherwise.
I think that's fine.
Okay. It always makes me nervous when attorneys say, I think. I'd rather you say I know.
Is that a motion?
As I said, there's total disagreement about the effective dates, but this discussion about the sequence was had at the legislature, and they decided it was okay to force the cities and counties to come up with their rules first, and the health district another additional year, understanding that the health district would do their job in the interim to protect public health and safety.
Here's what I'm going to do is make a motion for 30-day abeyance, and at the next hearing, it'd be great if we have representatives from the health district here to talk about what existing regulations are in place, and maybe that'll bring some light into the process. And along that 30-day period, if we're able to get any language from the other jurisdictions around the multi-jurisdictional license, because I want to make sure if that does end up in the bill that we're able to implement it the way it's intended. Yeah, so that would be the motion.
I was just about
Quieren también tiene un plan para hacer un permiso para todos los distritos, como lo hace con la gente de construcción. Y nos tiene uno para cada distrito.
Okay.
Can you bring it up?
No, solo no quieren dar ni una recomendación.
So what we're saying is we have a motion on here for a 30-day abeyance for the recommending committee. What we're going to ask Mr. Ford to do is this will be an emerging issue for City Council if we can have a representative from the health district and then any other interested party to talk about this particular issue, either in briefings or at a council meeting.
Yes, sir, no problem at all.
Chairman Knutson, I just want to make you aware that's actually January 2nd that you're recommending it to.
Do we have a meeting on that day? Is that the only item? What's the next appropriate recommending committee date?
January 16th.
That sounds more appropriate to me.
And Mr. Chairman,
And
Yes.
how do we get it, what is the earliest, please, excuse me for jumping in. What is the earliest that we could get it in front of emerging issues at council? What would be the very earliest, regardless of obeying this?
And Robert, from Make the Road Nevada, I know you all have done an amazing job of advocating and aligning resources. What we want to do is try to make sure that we're respectful, because what I hear from the committee up here and what I've heard from other council members is that we want to create something that works for the vending community, but we're also trying to pick a date where it's better that you're able to come down and advocate appropriately. So that's what we're trying to do, is create a law that makes sense and not be forced into a law that doesn't quite make sense yet.
So the earliest we could get it agendized as a public hearing is January 3rd. Is that correct, Luke? And we could put it on emerging issues on the 20th just for discussion, but we could not take any action at that point.
Could we discuss it on December 20th?
As emerging issues.
Is there no,
Yes.
yeah, that, I mean,
As long as it's limited to discussion.
Correct.
Don't want you going toward any decisions on emerging issues. That can't be done.
can the council participate with questions, and can we have somebody from the health department on an emerging issue?
You can do it, but you always run the risk of somebody filing an open meeting law complaint because you've put something on the agenda for significant discussion that wasn't agendized.
So what I believe the request is it is going to be an emerging issue to make it a discussion item on the council agenda.
So the emerging issue discussion will be, let's put an item on the council agenda at a future date. Is that what you're saying?
Can we do that on December 6th?
It's too soon.
And
Yes,
then- no,
because
put it on.
emerging issues are never identified. They're things that you bring up spontaneously.
Right, but what I'm saying is, can we, on December 6th, say,
Ahorita
if
están
emergencies
revisando
we'd like
fechas.
to bring to attention,
Because-
and then discuss it on December 20th, because we brought it up that we want it on the agenda?
You normally would say to the city manager on December 6th, we would like an item on December 20th.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, then we can discuss it, and we don't break the open meeting law,
And
right?
can there be a presentation by the
Yes,
council?
yes, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so the motion is set.
good.
And please post.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So in case this became confusing to everyone, what we've done as a recommending committee is ask the city manager's office to make this an agenda item for discussion on December 20th with the health district presenting, and then the follow-up recommending committee where the bill will be heard again with hopefully presentations from the health district as well will be on January 16th. And that'll be at the appropriate time again for anybody you'd like to organize to come down on January 16th. And we have one more question.
Please, does that mean then, we've gotten it, we bring it up on the 6th, this Wednesday, to put it on the agenda as emerging issue on the 20th? Are we able then to have participation from beyond the health department? Can we have public comment in an emerging issue on the 20th?
It won't be an emerging issue at that point, and it can be, you can do whatever the agenda item says. So if the agenda item says discussion, that's what you'll do. If it says discussion for possible action, then you might give somebody direction after hearing from the public.
Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, yes? Clear, it has to be written, whatever
Very
it is.
clear. Okay, so that was item number 5. That was a long one. I appreciate your patience, and thank you for coming down, and thank you for translating.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate it. And we are now at citizen participation, so if you'd like to make a comment now, we'll set the time at 1 minute.
¿Quieres un otro comentario antes?
Pues,
Sí, ¿quieres?
bueno. Bueno, muchísimas gracias de antemano a todas las personas que nos van a permitir tener un permiso para poder trabajar. Nosotros, yo por ejemplo, me interesa estar dentro de la ley para que poder pagar mis impuestos, pero también necesito unas facilidades lógicas, porque si no, no puedo yo, y no nomás yo lo hablo por mí, sino hay muchos compañeros que venden tamales, que venden fruta, que venden flores, yo por ejemplo vendo elotes y raspados, pero hay muchas personas que requieren este permiso y yo creo que sería lógico ingresar a más personas, pero si es algo accesible yo creo que sí ingresan muchos, si no, no creo que vamos a seguir en lo mismo, porque es bien difícil trabajar así. Nos quieren poner unos requisitos como si tuviéramos un restaurante o un negocio en grande, y la verdad, nuestros ingresos son bien limitados. Muchas gracias.
Is Robert Garcia, for the record, his name is Eduardo. He's saying that he really appreciates the discussion you just had right now to further have an opportunity to talk and have more street vendors come, and overall believes that he understands paying taxes, he understands getting the permits and stuff, but making them more accessible for the community is what's really important, not to not hinder them from making it harder for them to be street vendors.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No. That's it.
Robert, thank you again for translating. This is very kind of you. I appreciate it. Mr. Reyes, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so
And
much,
thanks to you
Robert.
both.
Thank you so much.
And that will be the conclusion of this meeting. I have no other statements to read because we're obeying, and so we can adjourn at 10:54.
This is the longest recommending
Longest
committee I've
meeting.
ever